My brother labeled me a family failure until his fiancée discovered my Forbes cover. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was like watching a house of cards tumble, one breath-stopping moment after another. Panic held my heart in a vice grip. I stood there, trembling in the shadows of my own family, as my brother's voice echoed in my mind. A family failure, he had said, slicing through me like a razor. His words cut deep, deeper than I ever thought possible. All around me, laughter erupted from our dining room. Bright lights, gleaming chandeliers, the scent of roasting turkey filling the air. It should have been comforting. But it wasn't. It was suffocating. I could see my parents' eyes twinkling with pride, but all I felt was heavy shame pressing down on my chest. Everyone at the table was a perfect picture of success. My brother Stephen leaned back in his chair, a smug smile on his face. Did he even realize how his words echoed, shattering any sense of family unity? I stared at my hands, red and raw from the day's work. I poured everything into my dream, blood, sweat, and tears. And yet was it all for nothing? I could still hear that sprinkling of laughter turning into muffled whispers, their eyes darting toward me as if I was a ghost haunting the festivities. What does she even do? One of my cousins had asked, the mockery sharp as glass. Stephen's fiancée, Rachel, was the only one who seemed out of place among our exceptionally polished family. She was rough around the edges, genuine in a way that fit like a missing puzzle piece. But what did she think of me? To her, I was just the disappointment sitting at the far end of the table. No important titles. Just the failures I wore like a cloak. As the dinner progressed, everything felt like it was happening in slow motion. I contemplated sneaking out, leaving them to their laughter, their stories. Just when I thought I could slip away unnoticed, Rachel caught my eye. Her gaze held something: curiosity? Or perhaps pity? I felt a shift as she leaned forward, whispering something to Stephen. The words fell heavy in the air, electrifying. Then suddenly, the laughter dimmed, and all attention gravitated toward her. "Oh my gosh, you'll never believe what I just found," Rachel exclaimed. A flicker of panic danced through me. I didn't know what was coming. In that instant my world swirled. My heart raced as she pulled out her phone. The screen glowed like a beacon, illuminating her face with excitement. "You guys know her, right? My fiancé's little sister. The one they all call a family failure. She's on the cover of Forbes." The room fell silent, the tension palpable as my cheeks burned with shame. What were they thinking, staring at me like I was some sort of science experiment gone wrong? I held my breath, unsure if I should sink into my seat or stand tall. But as their eyes widened in disbelief, something shifted in the air. Would they see me differently? Or would it be for all the wrong reasons? The murmurs rose again, but they were different now, somewhere between surprise and disbelief. Did they think I was lying? Did I even have the right to celebrate? My heart pounded like a drum, uncertainty swirling in the pit of my stomach. As I caught Rachel's gaze again, I noticed a glimmer of something else: a shared understanding? Or perhaps, a realization that her discovery had unearthed layers upon layers of unspoken judgment and assumptions. My chest tightened painfully. Was it really possible for me to triumph within this family, or just an illusion, a fleeting moment teetering on the edge of truth? And before I could grasp the gravity of the situation, Stephen's expression darkened. He opened his mouth, anger simmering on his tongue, ready to lash out. "You're still a disappointment," he began, but the words hung in the air, unfinished, as if waiting for the storm to break loose. What was I? Just a failure? Or could this be a turning point? I wanted to scream, to tell them what I'd fought for. But instead I stood frozen, heart racing, waiting for the truth to emerge from the shadows. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air grew thick with tension as Stephen's voice droned on, a low thunder preceding the storm I feared was coming. My heart sank. The cover of Forbes? That doesn't change what you are. With each syllable, The laughter that once filled the room dissipated, leaving a void that felt palpable, like a weight pressing against me. I cringed, wanting to shrink into myself, to disappear. It felt as though the spotlight had shifted from me to him, illuminating his anger while casting me deeper into the shadows. I wanted to fight back, to tell him I had worked so hard for this moment, to prove him wrong. Yet the words tangled in my throat. Rachel, ever the kind-hearted, seemed to sense the shift in the atmosphere. She reached out, placing a comforting hand on my arm. "Stephen," she interjected softly, her tone firm yet warm, "maybe it's worth celebrating what she has achieved, regardless of past mistakes." Her words came as a lifeline, a reminder that perhaps not everyone saw me through my brother's harsh lens. I turned to her, searching for the reassurance that had been stripped away moments earlier. "You really think it's worth celebrating?" I asked, my voice trembling as I tried to stand upright against the weight of my family's judgment. "Absolutely," Rachel replied, her blue eyes sparkling with sincerity. "You've climbed mountains to get here. It's not merely about the title, it's the journey." With her simple acknowledgement, the faintest flicker of hope sparked within me. But just as quickly as it came, doubts flooded in. What if this was my only moment? What if they all returned to their perceptions, pushing me back into obscurity? I forced myself to take a breath, feeling the heat of their scrutiny. The discussion in the room began to shift. Hushed voices began to play devil's advocate. "Just one magazine doesn't mean she's successful," someone murmured, igniting a familiar sink of despair within me. With every word, my accomplishments felt like grains of sand slipping through my fingers. I squeezed my eyes shut, battling the emotions swirling within me. "Guys, let's just be supportive," Rachel said, her voice unwavering. "Can't we recognize that success looks different for everyone?" They continued to chatter, their judgments slipping through the air like arrows. I wanted to block them out, but they pierced through me with stinging accuracy. My heart ached, wondering how I would measure up to my brother's unrelenting standards, and those of the family I craved validation from, but felt so distant from. The bitterness of Stephen's gaze lingered, like poison pooling. "So what now?" he challenged, his eyes narrowing in contempt. "Is everyone supposed to clap and cheer? You've got a magazine cover. Woohoo! You still can't keep a job." With those words, my stomach twisted painfully. They resonated with my worst fears. The fear of being cast aside despite any accomplishments. I felt trapped in a cage I had never asked to be in. Just moments ago, I'd been buoyed by Rachel's kindness. Now my mental fortress crumbled. "Can't we just focus on the achievement for a moment?" I finally spoke, keeping my voice steady, desperate to show I was worthy of this moment even if no one else felt it. "It's not about proving I'm someone to you. It's about celebrating what I love." Silence clung to the room, the weight of my confession hanging heavily in the air. I felt as if I were standing naked in front of them, bearing my insecurities, desperate for acceptance. Yet, instead of applause, there came the heavy sighs of resignation from my familiar unspoken belief that I was still nothing more than the inadequate daughter and sister. Just when I thought I might crumble, Rachel held my gaze, her expression softening. "Sometimes the people closest to us struggle to see beyond their vision of who we are," she said quietly, her voice wrapping around me like a warm embrace. "They forget we have our own paths to carve, our own stories to tell." Encouraged by her support, I dared to speak again. "You know what? I've put my heart and soul into my work, and I won't let anyone define my worth but me. Not even you. Stephen." "What about the family name?" he scoffed, rolling his eyes. "How does a cover save you from that? Why does it matter?" I shot back, my heart racing, and as the words tumbled out, unfiltered, the silence deepened. It became painfully clear that for every moment of hope, there was an equal amount of suffering, an immeasurable weight of expectation. Yet just as quickly as despair sought to clutch at my heart, an unexpected bell rung. An old phone in the corner of the kitchen started to ring, breaking through the tension. Startled, my parents exchanged confused glances as the ringing intensified. "I'll get it," I offered, eager to escape the intensity of our standoff. My legs carried me into the kitchen, away from probing eyes, while my heart raced both in anxiety and a flicker of hope for a distraction. When I picked up the receiver, an unfamiliar voice greeted me. "Is this Emily?" it asked. The calmness of the stranger felt surreal against the storm brewing within me. "Yes," I replied hesitantly, unsure where this was heading. There's something you need to know about your recent Forbes feature. The voice extended a line of curious urgency that settled a chill in my spine. And about your family, my breath caught. Before I could reply, the weight of the moment crashed down. A revelation was about to unfold, and I was left dangling on the precipice of uncertainty, trembling in anticipation of what would come next. The voice on the other end paused, and in that brief silence, it felt as though the world outside the kitchen had grown still. My heart raced as I held the receiver tighter, the cold plastic grounding me in a reality I barely understood. Please go on, I urged, my nerves sparking with a blend of fear and anticipation. I'm calling because there's something important linked to your family and the circumstances around your feature. It's not just about your achievements, Emily. There's more beneath the surface. The voice spoke, sounding grave and somber. I swallowed hard, heart pounding in my chest. What do you mean? What kind of circumstances? My mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Could it be about Stephen? About my parents? Why was I always a step behind, an outsider in my own family? The stranger hesitated again, as if weighing their words carefully. I'm afraid this is not an easy thing to discuss over the phone. Can we meet? I believe what I have to say is vital both for you and for your family. An icy tendril of fear wove its way through me, blurring the edges of my hopeful moment. I stammered, still grappling to grasp the weight of his words. Why is this happening now? What's going on? Please just trust me, he implored, a quiet urgency resonating in his tone. I understand this may be overwhelming, but sometimes the truth can help shine a light on the shadows. I was gripped by a visceral need to understand. Where do you want to meet? I finally whispered, my voice tremulous but resolute. With every fiber of my being, I sensed that my life-me struggle was about to spiral into something larger than I could have imagined. Meet me at the cafe on 5th and Elm, he instructed. I'll be there in an hour. Just don't mention this to your family yet. The line clicked off abruptly. I stood clutching the receiver, swirling in a tempest of apprehension and confusion. The noise of family gathered in the living room felt like static, irrelevant and background to this haunting prospect that lay ahead. I took a moment to breathe, to ground myself before stepping back into the battlefield of judgment. I donned a mask of composure, channeling the momentary strength Rachel had gifted me. As I re-entered the room, the atmosphere had relaxed, but the vestiges of tension still floated above our heads like a storm waiting to break. Rachel caught my eye, her brow furrowing with concern. Are you okay? You look a bit pale, she said softly. My family. I just need a moment. No one else seemed to have noticed I had stepped away, lost in their own conversations, but Rachel nodded as if granting me permission to find solace within my own turmoil. Hey, you're going to be fine. Just remember, no one defines your worth but you, she whispered, leaning closer. Her words resonated in my mind as I mentally prepared myself for the confrontation that was bound to unfold. But beneath the surface of their gentle familiarity, buried truths awaited. I felt the faint tendrils of hope juxtaposed with a heavy undercurrent of fear returning as I settled back into my chair. Stephen's eyes met mine, glinting with an unspoken challenge. So what's the deal? Did someone just call to tell you how fabulous you are? Because we both know that's not how this family works, he scoffed, bitterness dripping from his words. Resentment bubbled up in response, but the stranger's voice echoed in my mind. Shine a light on the shadows. Perhaps this was the moment I couldn't back down from. Actually, I said, standing a little taller, I just had a call about something that could really change things for me, Dado. He answered mockingly. Another chip on your shoulder. Maybe so, I replied, matching his gaze. But for once, I'm not going to let you dictate the narrative anymore. I'm meeting with someone who might help clear away the debris both for me and for our family. And with that proclamation, the room shifted slightly. It felt as though shadows loomed heavier on Stephen's face, while my parents exchanged worried glances. But what surprised me most was Rachel's unwavering support, giving me a silent thumbs up, a flicker of reassurance reminding me that resoluteness bred strength. I don't give a damn what you think, Stephen, I said, feeling emboldened by adrenaline. I have a chance to know more about where I stand, not just with you but with this family. And you can keep your judgment to yourself. As I spoke, a sense of power swelled within me, igniting a flicker of determination that had been dormant for too long. Maybe this was a new beginning, one where I could reclaim my story. Just as the air grew thick with my defiance, An unexpected scream sent chills racing down my spine. Mom! Dad! It was my brother's fiancée. An innocent distraction from the morass of emotions covering the room. She stumbled through the door, pale and wide-eyed, clutching her phone as if it were an anchor. I think you need to see this. Her urgency propelled the family dynamic into chaos, my heart racing with anticipation. The fight dissolving into hushed tones filled with concern. My final shred of confidence began to shred like tissue. Confusion reigned for several moments until someone finally queried, "What's wrong?" The fiancé took a breath, trembling slightly. "It's about your familia scandal that, well, it's about to blow up on social media." The implications of her statement suffocated the air around us. The conversation I had with the stranger echoed painfully in my mind. How unaware we had all been. Caught in the spiral of my achievements versus my brother's derision, while something deeper was brewing beneath us. Scandal. I whispered, heart sinking. The revelation hung like a storm cloud. What secrets lay exposed? Would this be the end of the shallow judgments, or the beginning of a fight none of us were prepared for? As the whispers of accusation danced like fire around us, dread settled heavy in my chest. Whatever the truth behind that phone call, it now loomed large above our family, ready to tear the fragile stitches of our very existence apart. The tension in the living room was palpable, thickening like fog as the reality of the fiancé's revelation settled over us. Faces once vibrant with laughter shifted to masks of dread, each of us grappling with our own fears and insecurities. I could feel my heart racing, erratic and loud, a war drum in the midst of brewing chaos. "What do you mean a scandal?" my mom asked, her voice quavering slightly as she leaned forward, desperate for clarity. It was clear that she, too, felt the ground shifting beneath our feet. My brother's fiancée looked at each of us in turn, her gaze solemn. "There's a trending post on social media that links your family to some controversial activities. People are sharing pictures and stories, it's spreading like wildfire." A flash of embarrassment and anger washed over me, igniting a spark of rebellion. My thoughts raced. Were my parents' hidden issues surfacing like a festering wound? Hadn't I just been standing up to Stephen, ready to face my own battles, only to be blindsided by this? What kind of activities? Stephen felt emboldened to ask, his smirk wiped away momentarily by shock. I almost felt satisfied to see the confusion on his face. He thrived on the drama, loving to be the one who pulled the strings. But now, his hand was off the reins, and I aimed to keep it that way. The fiancée took another breath, her determination surfacing. "There are old allegations about financial misconduct. Photos of family members at questionable events are surfacing, too, all taken years ago. But now they're being shared as part of an exposé." A flash of betrayal swept through me, colliding with the secondhand embarrassment I felt for my family. How had we let this happen? Were my parents so ensnared in their pretense that they couldn't see it coming? "What the hell?" my dad exploded, the shock splattering across his face, turning to anger in an instant. "This is just a smear campaign. Those photos were taken out of context." My mother, looking ghostly pale, placed her hand over her heart. "Calm down, Ben. This isn't helping." As they fumbled through futile justifications, my mind became a whirlwind of thoughts. The stranger's words returned to me. Sometimes the truth can help shine a light on the shadows. Maybe the revelation of this so-called scandal was a response to the very darkness my family had tried so hard to conceal. In that moment of turmoil, Rachel's soft voice cut through my racing thoughts. "Emily, maybe this is a chance to confront the truth once and for all." Her gaze never wavered, as if she could sense the crossroads I stood upon. I glanced at her, feeling conflicted. This wasn't the clarity I had hoped for. It was a new storm. Our family dynamic, fragile and fraught, was threatening to unravel before my eyes. And we were careening toward the unknown. "I don't want to hear another word of denial," I heard myself say, surprising even myself with the strength of my voice. "If there's something we need to address, let's address it now. This could be our chance to clear the air and blow open whatever secrets have been sealing us in this suffocating silence." The room fell silent, an electric pulse vibrating through the air as my parents gaped at me. This was undeniably the most honest moment I had ever shared with my family, yet the weight of their shared past threatened to crush us all together. "Emily, we can manage this," my father said, but the weakness in his voice betrayed confidence or lack thereof. "Manage what?" I challenged, frustration mounting as I caught Steven smirking in the corner of my eye. Is that what we've done all these years? Managed lies and deceit? It's time for the truth to come out, even if it means digging into painful memories. As my parents exchanged glances, I could see the hesitation intertwining with fear, and for a fleeting moment, it felt like the past was closing in on us, smothering all hope. Their secrets had become suffocating vines that restrained me, too. The fiancée clutched her phone tighter. You need to act fast, she urged. People are already commenting, speculating. What if they dig deeper and uncover even worse things? Her words hung in the air, haunting and real, like a specter ready to pounce. With each passing moment, the idea of confrontation felt both viable and terrifying. How could we face the shadows that loomed heavy within our family? Just then, an unexpected sound broke the tension, the ping of a new notification from my brother's phone, a glaring reminder of how fragile our grasp on reality had become. Without thinking, I turned my attention toward him, as much driven by instinct as fear. Steven, what did it say? I called out, but the icy grip around my heart tightened as I saw the shock spread across his face. Don't tell me you're enjoying this. There's something more, he stammered, fumbling with the device. They're saying the investigation is reaching out to family members, and they want interviews. They want your side of the story, Emily, not just mom and dad. A choking sensation formed in my throat as dread overwhelmed me. Suddenly, I was thrust into the limelight not as a strong, independent woman reclaiming her narrative, but as a figure bound to the judgment of the outside world. This was the moment I thought I'd been preparing for, yet now it felt like a stage collapsing beneath my feet. My family loomed around me, each face revealing a blend of fear, guilt, and the threadbare hope that perhaps this darkness could somehow illuminate something brighter. I took a deep breath, sensing the churning chaos beneath, echoing the internal tumult I'd fought all my life, and just as I began to gather my thoughts, my phone buzzed violently on the table, drawing my gaze down and twisting the knife further. I picked it up, the shuffle of unease rippling inside me. The message was simple, but its implications were profound. Emily, it's urgent. Meet me at the cafe. I have information about your family. It's worse than you think. My heart stopped. Whatever shadows I thought I'd begun to unveil now threatened to swallow me whole. What more could there be that had yet to come to light? I looked up, finding everyone staring at me, the weight of their eyes like chains. And as the reality crashed around us like glass breaking on concrete, I understood that the journey ahead would be harrowing, but perhaps, for the first time, a chance to embrace the truth that awaited at the end of this dark tunnel stood before me, shrouded in both fear and the faintest glimmer of hope. The cafe was a small, unassuming place, tucked away on a quiet street that I had often walked past without a second glance. Today, however, it buzzed with an energy that felt foreign yet oddly familiar. I could still feel the weight of tension from our living room, where secrets hung thick in the air, blending with the smell of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods. The barista called my order as I stepped in, the bell above the door jangling a reminder that life continued. Even as my world threatened to disintegrate, I spotted her at the back, seated in a corner booth with a cup of steaming tea between her hands. Mia, the estranged cousin whose absence had echoed through family gatherings for years. Our childhood memories were tinged with the bright colors of laughter, but that had faded into a spectrum of bitterness and misunderstanding in the wake of family fractures. I hadn't seen her in years, and I didn't know what to expect. As I approached, her face flickered with recognition and apprehension. Emily, she said softly, as though uttering my name was a crossing of old borders, a hesitant acknowledgement of our shared past. Mia, I replied, sliding into the booth across from her. Thank you for meeting me. She nodded slowly, her gaze darting towards the window as if she were afraid someone might overhear. I saw the post, she admitted quietly. It's all so confusing. I didn't think they could come back to haunt us like this. There's more, isn't there? I pressed, feeling my hand shake slightly in my lap. You said on the phone that you had information. Her expression darkened, layering her features with regret. I don't want to add to your pain, but they're saying some things that relate not just to old finances but to relationships, actions taken by family members. The words landed heavily between us like a stone thrown into a still pond, causing ripples of disbelief to wash over me. What kind of actions? I whispered, holding myself together as dread coiled tightly in my chest. Mia hesitated, fear flickering in her eyes. There are rumors about your uncle's dealings, things even I don't want to believe. Allegations of money laundering, ties to unsavory people, and not just from a decade ago, but potentially more recently. My mind reeled. My uncle had always been a shadowy figure in our family history. A man whose presence was both intimidating and spellbinding. But why had no one ever connected his name to the trail of darkness we'd grown accustomed to bearing? What does that have to do with us? I asked, struggling to steady my voice. With my parents? Because people are making connections. She leaned forward, intensity etched across her face. Some of the activities he was involved in? They're saying your family had a wider role. They're saying it might go all the way up to your parents' affairs that were covered up, things being manipulated behind the scenes. I blinked, the world around me slipping into a haze. Unraveling, all the threads I had tried to keep from tangling had now turned into an impossible knot, intertwining not just my identity but the very soul of my family. Where are you getting this from? I pressed, skepticism fighting through my panic. You can't just throw these accusations around. Emily, she said softly, her eyes brimming with urgency. I would never if I didn't have proof. The posts, the investigations, they're digging up old family ties every minute. I saw a snippet being shared tonight suggesting something more serious. People think that whoever is trying to expose it is close to releasing evidence. My breath hitched inside my throat as I grasped my phone, trembling fingers scrolling through notifications that had become my new tormentors. It was impossible not to wonder how deep this rabbit hole went and if the family I thought I knew had been wading through darkness while I remained blissfully unaware. Emily. The sharp voice broke my thoughts, and I looked up to see Stephen standing at the entrance, his features twisted with apprehension and suspicion. You're in here? What's going on? I started, but he interrupted me. Mom and Dad are freaking out. The online noise is getting worse, and people are sharing things that go beyond mere speculation. His eyes shifted to Mia. What are you doing here? She clasped her hands tightly, shrinking back slightly under his glare. I was just giving Emily some insight, she said quietly. Insight? He repeated, disbelief spreading across his face. We can't afford any more bad press. I shouldn't have let you come here alone. You have to get back, this is a mess. Panic surged through me at his words. What else do you know? I asked, my voice sharper than intended. Only that everyone is scrambling to control this narrative. If the truth comes out about Uncle Theo, if the allegations reach critical mass, you'll all be sucked into the vortex. He ran a hand over his hair, agitation clear. Mia looked defeated, her eyes darting between us as if hoping for an escape. I'm sorry, she murmured. I thought if you knew, but I didn't have time for her apologies. A sudden realization gripped me. Stephen, do you think? Could Uncle Theo be behind all of this? Could he be using the chaos to manipulate something even worse? The piercing silence that descended was heavy with implications. I could see the gears turning in Stephen's mind, and for the first time, I sensed a flicker of concern ignite in his expression, perhaps realizing that the stakes were higher than anyone had previously thought. His lips parted slightly as he met my gaze. The truth hung unspoken between us, mixed with the tension of everything we had kept hidden. "You don't know. But we need to get ahead of this," I nodded, feeling the cold grip of fear slip into resolution. There was no turning back now. As we stepped out of the cafe together, a sense of unity had begun to form beneath the anxiety. But beneath that flicker of hope lay the darkness that continued to swirl around us like storm clouds on the horizon. And in that moment, as I sensed the impending storm gathering strength, a chilling thought crossed my mind. What if this scandal was just the tip of a much darker iceberg waiting to emerge from the depths, and what if, in our desire to control it, we set off a chain reaction that would tear us apart even more than the secrets held within? I shuddered at the weight of despair, and hope coiled tightly in my chest, knowing that life as we knew it was hanging by a thread, ready to snap at any moment. The only way out now was through a labyrinth of truths I had yet to discover. The weight of uncertainty followed me like a shadow as I stepped beside Stephen out of the cafe, our bustling surroundings starkly contrasting the tumult churning within. The air seemed taut with unsaid words, the atmosphere vibrating with the electric hum of gossip. Strangers brushed past us, their expressions blank or caught in flashes of curiosity, but I felt the world collapse into a narrow tunnel where only Stephen and I existed, consumed by the storm of revelations. "You think we should talk to Mom and Dad right away?" I ventured, my voice quieter than I intended, as dread settled in my stomach like a heavy stone. I don't know, he replied, running a hand over his face. We need to be strategic. If we can figure out how deep this goes, but still, they're panicking. The last thing they need is more information without a plan. His eyes darted around, almost searching for eavesdroppers in the gathering crowd. I felt a pang of frustration. How could we protect our family without facing the monstrous truths bred in secrecy? What if Uncle Theo really is involved? I pressed. What if he's been hiding something, manipulating all of us from the start? It could explain why we've felt so disconnected all these years. Stephen grimaced as if my words were a physical blow. We have to consider the implications. If those whispers gain traction, we'll be buried, I interjected, an edge creeping into my tone. The thought of our family's legacy crumbling beneath the weight of our blood ties stirred a fire in me. Without realizing it, I was seeking hope, searching for the light hidden in the depths of despair as we strolled down the street, our minds racing. A brief emotion disconnected me from the chaos. A small flower shop tucked away in a corner with blooms bursting in a riot of colors. Without thinking, I pulled Stephen towards it. What are we doing? He asked, bewildered. We need a moment, I replied. If we're going to face this storm, we should also remind ourselves of the good in the world. He hesitated but followed me inside. The chiming of the doorbell a comfort amid the turmoil. The shop smelled of fresh earth and sweetness, filling my lungs with a refreshing breath that cut through the wildness of the day. I strolled through aisles filled with bright petals and fragrant herbs, running my fingers over the delicate leaves. What do you suggest? Stephen asked, looking away from the chaos that buzzed through his mind. Something bright. Something that reminds us that beauty exists, I responded, gravitating towards a bouquet of sunflowers that seemed to stand tall against the storm clouds brewing outside. Sunflowers? He raised an eyebrow, but a smile tugged at his lips despite the weight hanging over us. Guess they do symbolize hope. Exactly, I affirmed, feeling a flicker of warmth spread through my chest. Let's take a little light with us. As I paid for the flowers, the shopkeeper, an elderly woman with laughter lines etched across her face, smiled warmly. You've got to feed the light inside you, dear. With everything going on in the world, hope is sometimes all we have, she said, her calm presence a soothing balm on my racing heart. Stepping back into the street, the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden rays on the pavement. I held the sunflowers close as if the warmth could dispel the chill creeping into my bones. See, sometimes moments of simplicity can cut through the shadows, I said, lifting the flowers to his face. A little theatrics from Emily. He laughed, and it felt like air seeped back into my lungs, lightening the heaviness lingering in our thoughts. But as we turned the corner toward home, the laughter vanished in an instant. Just ahead, a crowd had gathered outside our family's house. Stephen and I exchanged a look of sheer terror, racing toward the commotion. Each step felt like I was trudging through dense fog, the air thick with unspoken dread. What's happening? I shouted, shoving my way through the gathering, panic coursing through my veins. A reporter stood at the forefront, shoving a microphone towards our front door, fabricating a sensational headline from thin air. The headline shrieked of scandal and dissolution, our family's name tarnished in abrupt clarity under the harsh, unforgiving light of public scrutiny. Is it true that the patriarch has ties to a money laundering ring? And that multiple allegations implicate your parents? The journalist yelled, microphone thrust forward as if probing for blood. My heart sank as I scanned the bewildered faces of passers-by now transfixed on our family home, the familiarity of our lives crumbling in the face of the unexpected spectacle. The sunflowers slipped from my grip, tumbling to the ground, their vibrancy now muted against the gray of reality. This time there's no way they'll silence it, I murmured, helplessness washing over me like a tidal wave. As I spun to face Stephen, horror etched across his face. A new wave of realization crashed into me. In our efforts to untangle the threads binding darkness to our family, I had overlooked a sinister truth. Perhaps it wasn't just Uncle Theo pulling the strings. The whispers had evolved. The specter of betrayal could very well lie within the very walls we called home. And suddenly, I wondered if the struggle for truth would not just tear us apart, but inadvertently expose a deeper fault line within our familia fracture that could lead to more than just scandal. As the breaths of uncertainty surrounded us like a cold shroud, one chilling thought emerged. What if the dark iceberg lurking beneath was starting to surface, And we were mistakenly ready to dive straight into its depths? I felt like a ghost drifting through the crowd, detached from the chaos unfolding before me. The gnawing fear in my gut intensified with each passerby who cast furtive glances at our family home, their faces a mix of pity and intrigue. Stephen stood beside me, his hand gripping my arm, grounding me as the noise of whispered speculation swirled around us like an ominous storm cloud. "We need to get inside," he said, urgency in his tone. I nodded, but even as we pushed through the onlookers, my mind raced with frantic thoughts. How did it come to this? Our family, once a sturdy fortress, now stood exposed, its flaws paraded before the world as we stepped through the threshold of our home. The familiar warmth of the interior felt alien. Our parents were crammed in the living room, their faces drawn tight with stress, eyes glazed over in shock. My mother's hands clutched the armrest of the sofa like it was her only lifeline, while my father stood at the window, his back to us, staring out at the chaos outside. "What's happening?" I barely managed to whisper as we entered. They turned, eyes wide and haunted. "The media got wind of some accusations," Dad said, his voice low and strained. "We're trying to manage it, but it's spiraling." "Accusations? What do they know?" I pressed, desperately seeking answers amid the burgeoning chaos. "Everything, it seems. They're claiming ties to," he swallowed hard, his face flushed with apprehension, "to practically everything," he finished, unable to contain the frustration. "Is it true?" Stephen interjected, his brow furrowed. "Our family's reputation is at stake." "Reputation?" I echoed, my heart racing. "What about our lives? Do you even realize how thin these threads are? How fragile everything is?" A silence thickened in the room, filled only by the distant murmurs of the crowd gathering outside. My parents exchanged a glance, a familiar communication of fear and shame that spoke volumes without needing words. "Emily, my mother began, her voice quivering. But before she could continue, the doorbell rang, shattering the tense stillness. I shot Stephen a panicked glance before moving toward the door. "I'll get it," I muttered, steeling myself for whatever new surprise lay in wait. When I opened the door, I was greeted not by a journalist, but by a figure I never expected, Aunt Marissa. Her usually vibrant presence was dulled by a storm of emotions, a mixture of anger and concern etched on her face. "Why didn't you call me?" she demanded, stepping past me as if she were storming into battle. "This isn't the time for family feuds, Emily. We need to come together." "But Aunt Marissa," I started, confused by her sudden strength. "No. You don't understand the depth of this," she cut me off. Her eyes darted around the room, then narrowed as she moved closer to my parents. "They've put a target on your backs. You need allies." My heart wavered between disbelief and a flicker of hope. "What do you mean? You know something we don't?" Her gaze lingered on my father for a moment, before she settled back on me. "You don't live in this bubble, Emily. There are deeper games at play here. If people knew what your family had really been involved in for years." I felt a chill seep into my bones. "What are you saying?" "What I'm saying is there's corruption. There's greed. And it's tangled with your family's name in ways you can't even begin to comprehend. This isn't just about Theo," she said fiercely, her emotions raw. Every word felt like a jolt of electricity, igniting suspicions I had buried deep. "And what do you know about it?" "I have my sources," she said simply, looking at my parents dismissively. "But I won't share anything without you all being prepared to face it." Tension thickened in the air around us as I exchanged glances with Stephen. "And how is facing this corruption supposed to help us? We're on the verge of destruction." "The truth isn't always a destruction," my aunt insisted. "Sometimes it can be a weapon. But you must stand united, or everything will fall apart." Just then, the cacophony outside escalated. I caught a glimpse of flashing lights through the window. "They're coming for a story," I murmured, dread washing over me. "I'll handle the press," Aunt Marissa declared, a spark of fierce determination igniting in her eyes. "You gather the rest of the family. We need them here, and we need to devise a plan fast." But I hesitated, torn between the pull of their chaos and the flicker of hope Marissa's words ignited. "Do you want to save your family, or watch it crumble?" she snapped, and in her fervor, I could sense the weight of years battling tides of corruption in a fractured family name. Before I could respond, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. As she fished it out, her face turned ghostly pale. can't be, she murmured, scrolling through the notifications. What is it? Stephen asked, urgency threading his voice, and then the breath left me as she glanced at us, eyes filled with disbelief and horror, and uttered a single name, Uncle Theo. The walls felt as though they were closing in, and I grasped the weight of her words. It was as if every unanswered question was about to tumble forth. Each revelation was no longer just an echo of betrayal. It now felt like a tide sweeping towards us, threatening to pull everything away, leaving us floundering in its wake. I could only stand frozen as Aunt Marissa whispered, "He's been in contact with the press." Everything I thought I understood about loyalty and truth shattered like glass, the pieces glittering destructively in front of me. And I knew then, we were not just facing scandal, we were standing at the precipice of an ugly revelation that could either drown us or set us free. Would we emerge whole, or would our bonds fray further, leading us to unravel the truth no one was prepared to face? The chaos surged outside in a crashing wave, an uproar that seemed to thunder through the very walls of our home. I stood rooted at the threshold, the words Uncle Theo reverberating in my head like a distant drumroll heralding impending doom. My breath hastened, each exhale a puff of disbelief as my world twisted with shocking revelations. "You don't understand, Emily," Aunt Marissa said, her voice low yet urgent, slicing through my fog of confusion. "Theo has connections. He knows precisely how to spin the narrative in their favor. All it takes is a whisper in the right ear." I turned to my parents, searching their faces for reassurance, for a glimmer of hope, but they were a portrait of despair. My father's usual stoic expression had crumbled, replaced by a depth of worry that gnawed at his brow. My mother covered her mouth with trembling hands, a silent prayer escaping her lips. "How could he do this?" I whispered, shock stealing my voice. "Why would he betray us?" Aunt Marissa placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. "Families can turn on each other in the blink of an eye, especially when secrets are involved. Your uncle has his ambitions. It's easy to lose yourself when the stakes are high." Every syllable of her warning clawed at my heart, but beyond the pain, a more primal instinct surged. It was the need to protect. "We have to confront him," I urged. "We can't let him smear our name. Not when we're this close to the edge." "That's risky," Stephen said, his voice thick with concern. "If the press has already gotten to him, he may not be the ally we hope for. He could decide to turn on us even more. Then let's not give him the chance to. If we face him together, we can take back control of our story," I replied, fighting to steel my resolve. Aunt Marissa stepped back, surprise flashing across her features at my defiance. "You think confronting him directly will end well? You might be walking into a trap. But if you're all in, we'll have to think strategically." Just then, the thrumming noise of the doorbell pulled me back to the present. "More visitors," I mumbled, dread settling like lead in my stomach. The reality was settling in. The prying eyes weren't just on our family anymore. They were probing into a darkness I never dared to explore. Stephen glanced at me with a determined gaze, squeezing my hand as I steeled myself for yet another confrontation. I opened the door, this time ready for anything. Before me stood a news reporter, microphone in hand, flanked by a hastily assembled crew. Her eyes were sharp, hungry for a story, and the camera light flickered ominously before my face. "Miss Emily, how do you respond to the allegations surrounding your family?" she asked, her tone laced with professionalism that barely concealed a veil of malice. "Get lost," I spat, the words slipping out before I could restrain them. Frustration rolled through me, burning in my cheeks. "Please, this is important," she pressed, shaking her head as if disappointed by my composure. "Your family could face severe backlash if you don't clear the air. Your uncle claims enough." I barked, cutting her off. It felt strange, liberating, and terrifying to wield anger as a shield, but it was also a plea for anything to anchor me amid the tumult that threatened to swallow us whole. As I stepped back and shut the door with a soft click, I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me, but the anger was quickly replaced with a rush of helplessness. How did it come to this? First, my uncle. Now strangers with cameras invading the shards of our fractured privacy. What do we do? I turned to Aunt Marissa, feeling more lost than ever before. "That we gather our strength," she replied, her voice steady, embodying resolve. "But first, Emily, you must talk to Theo. It could be our only chance to gauge what he intends to do next. He may be driven, but you share blood, you sit." The gravity of her words struck me like a lightning bolt. I felt the weight of family bonds pulling me forward, but the fear gnawed fiercely at my feet, threatening to keep me cemented in place. What if he's too far gone? What if he destroys us all? Aunt Marissa held my gaze, her eyes a mirror reflecting my turmoil. You won't know until you try. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting in spite of it. Even in the darkest moments, the faintest light glimmered, inviting a spark of bravery into my soul. I turned to Stephen, who nodded, a shared determination sparking quietly between us. Okay, I said, my voice trembling but firm. I'll confront him. But I need you all with me. We must stand as one or risk losing everything. We gathered our momentum like gathering clouds before release, preparing ourselves to storm the source of our troubles. Yet, as each second ticked away, an unsettling thought gripped me. If facing Theo revealed more than I was ready to confront? Just as we were about to reach the door, a new message chimed on Aunt Marissa's phone. Her face paled instantly again. Emily, it's the press, she whispered, her fingers trembling on the screen. They found something else. Something huge. Panic clawed at my throat. What else could they possibly know? Her blue eyes darted between us, dread pooling in her expression. They say, there's a tape, a recording relating to the accusations, and it involves Uncle Theo. Time slowed, fear coiling tight in my chest as a sudden realization hit me. His was not just about defending our family name anymore. This was about confronting a legacy tainted with unfathomable secrets and betrayal. The cliffhanger of our lives was edging closer, and soon, we would be forced to face the unthinkable truths that had lain hidden right where we thought our roots ran deep. The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating, as I gripped the doorknob with fingers that trembled, not from fear but from a cacophony of emotions warring within me. The idea of speaking to Theo now felt like standing at the precipice of a dark chasm, the wind whispering secrets from the depths below. Aunt Marissa clutched her phone, her eyes wide, the blue normally vibrant with warmth now stark with worry. She looked like she was staring down a ghost, perhaps even the very one that haunted our familial ties. Oh, we really want to hear what this tape contains? Stephen asked softly, narrowing his eyes slightly. A hint of protectiveness laced his voice, an unspoken promise to keep me safe from whatever horror awaited us. We need to know. I responded, sharper than I intended, but the adrenaline had begun to pulse through my veins, igniting a fierce defiance. If there's something out there that could ruin us, we can't afford to walk in blind. My phone buzzed incessantly in my pocket, a futile attempt to remind me of the outside world, but I silenced it quickly. Instead, I focused on the faces gathered around me, etched with concern, yet a fierce determination stated in every line. Let's rally our forces, I said, smoothing my shirt, taking solace in the feeling of the fabric, a tangible reminder of who I was beneath the turmoil. We'll confront Theo together, and whatever is on that tape, we will prepare ourselves for it. But let's do it with our heads held high. Are you sure we should just rush in? Maybe we should wait to see if we can get ahead of the story, Aunt Marissa said hesitantly, her protective instinct battling against the urgency of the moment. No, we need to control the narrative. Uncle Theo needs to know that we aren't afraid to face him, I replied, excitement and fear threading my resolve in equal measure. The stakes had never felt higher. With solemn nods, we prepared to leave our sanctuary for the battleground of family drama laid out before us. The moment we stepped outside, the floodlights from cameras in the street illuminated the tension among us. I felt like I was in a circus tent, surrounded by a throng eager to witness the impending disaster. Emily, shouted a reporter striding toward us, their presence overpowering. Can you comment on the allegations before you meet your uncle? I felt my heart race, but I gritted my teeth, forcing myself not to engage. Instead, I glanced over to my family, grounding myself in their unwavering presence. Each of you has pulled strength from the others, united against this world of chaos. As we reached the car, I caught sight of a familiar face, a woman I recognized from days long gone. Mrs. Hollingsworth, our neighbor from years back, stood at the edge of the curb, arms crossed with a look of fierce defiance. Her eyes reminded me of a lion, unbowed even in the midst of adversity. Emily, I've been meaning to tell you, she caught my attention, rushing across the pavement. I know things look bleak, but you have people who love you. Don't let them spin lies about your family. We're all rooting for you. Don't let your uncle make you feel small. Her words wrapped around me like a warm blanket on a cold winter's night. Thank you, Mrs. Hollingsworth, I responded, fighting back a wave of gratitude that threatened to spill over. Just remember who you are, she said, before retreating back into the crowd. The encounter sparked a small flicker of hope amidst the turmoil, reminding me of the importance of community, of kindness, and the power that lay within each one of us to rise against the odds. As I climbed into the car, our collective silence became a makeshift armor, readying us for the confrontation ahead. The drive toward my uncle's office felt eternal, as the city blurred past, each block thickening the anticipation in my heart. But as we neared his building, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message that made my blood run cold. A single text from an unknown number glared back at me. I know your family's secret. Meet me tonight at the bridge or lose everything. Numb, my breath hitched as I stared at the screen. Whispers of panic began to fill the car, spreading like wildfire. What is it? Stephen asked, sensing the shift in my demeanor. Someone knows about the tape. They want me to meet them, I stammered, my voice trembling. They said I could lose everything. A chilling silence enveloped us as realization settled in. This wasn't just about confronting Theo anymore. This was a game with stakes much higher, and it was clear I was now a player on a board that I didn't fully understand. The path forward grew darker, shrouded in uncertainty, yet one undeniable truth rose within me: would not turn back. With each passing second, the weight of that decision pressed down, but deep within me ignited a raw determination to uncover the truth, whatever that took. I had agreed to face my uncle, but now I was faced with an even graver choice. A leap into the unknown where further darkness lurked. Who awaited me at the bridge? A foe, or perhaps an unexpected ally? Whatever awaited me, I could only hope it was enough to shatter the dark reality Theo had woven around our family. As soon as we arrived at Theo's office building, my heart pulsed in my chest like a wild drum. The walls felt like they were closing in on me, echoing my fear and frustration. I turned to Stephen, his expression mirroring my own uncertainty, a strange mix of determination and trepidation painting his features. Are you ready? He asked softly, as if trying to steel us both for what lay ahead. I don't know if ready is the right word, I replied, glancing at the looming structure above us. Each window seemed to glimmer with the light of our past choices, decisions that had spiraled out of control. But we couldn't falter now, not with everything at stake. We stepped inside, where the sterile smell of antiseptic and polished wood clung to the air. As we approached the elevator, tension electrified our connection. Standing side by side, we found solace in our shared resolve, united against the darkness looming just a few steps away. With a soft ding, the door opened and we stepped in, the thrum of the elevator a haunting reminder that we were racing toward the inevitable. Silence enveloped us, each floor ticked by with measured anticipation, and as we reached the top, I took a deep breath, grounding myself before facing Uncle Theo. I squinted against the bright, overhead lights reflecting off the sterile walls. In the waiting area, shadows danced as if whispering secrets we weren't yet privy to. Then, just beyond the heavy wooden door marked Theo Marshall, we heard a low murmur, indistinct but urgent. Should we knock? Stephen asked, tension surfacing like water ready to boil. I don't have a plan, I admitted. But I don't think waiting is going to help us. Together we pushed the door open, startled by the sight that greeted us. Theo sat at a sleek glass desk, his fingers steepled before him, a hard smile playing on his lips. But it was the presence beside him that froze my hair. Tan unfamiliar figure, a reporter with a poised, expectant expression, scribbling notes furiously. I instinctively linked my arm with Stephen's, anchoring each other as our gazes met. What's going on? I managed, forcing my voice to remain steady despite the tremor of uncertainty. Theo leaned back in his chair, amusement flickering in his eyes. Ah, Emily. So good of you to finally join us. His tone dripped with arrogance, and an unsettling realization washed over me. He was enjoying this, playing a game that felt like chess where I was already losing. We know about the allegations, I bravely declared, stepping forward. What's on that tape? You aren't going to drag my family's name any further into the muck without a fight. Such fire, he quipped, leaning forward with an almost predatory interest. But darling, you underestimate the power of a good story. You have no idea the depths I've uncovered. Stop trying to spin this your way, I shot back, my heart racing. You're the one who's been hiding the truth, not us. He raised an eyebrow, amusement still shimmering in his gaze. And what truth would that be? The image you all have spun. Cloaked in success and perfection? Emily, you're merely a pawn in a game that's beyond your comprehension. But I'm here to find the truth, I asserted, determination swelling inside me. And if you think I'm afraid of whatever you have in that recording, you're wrong. We want to uncover the reality behind our family's history. You can't keep running from it. And what is that? He challenged, voice low and mocking. What reality do you think you will find? One of our proud legacy? Those stories you cling to? Or will you find something far darker, decay hidden beneath polished facades? Tension surged as I met his gaze, warning that he wasn't just toying with me, but rather wielding my family's past like a weapon against us. You're bluffing, Stephen interjected, stepping closer. Defiance implied in every inch of his presence. You can't intimidate us into submission. A flicker of irritation crossed Theo's face before he gathered his composure again. Idiot boy, he spat, it's not intimidation. It's exposure. And soon the world will know just how twisted the roots of your family tree really are. Why are you doing this? I asked, struggling to understand how someone could relish casting shadows over their own blood. With a self-satisfied smirk, he leaned back, folding his arms across his chest. Because it's exhilarating. To watch the walls crumble, to observe the fragility of pride. But I'm not here for a family reunion. I'm here to reveal the acquisition of power. His gaze faltered for a moment, a flicker of something vulnerable shining through. I'll give you a chance. You can either play this game or face the music. Your family's legacy is nothing more than a whisper now, and soon they will embrace the truth. Before I could reply, the reporter shifted her weight, holding her pen between her fingers, almost delicately. Do you think you'll be prepared to face whatever your uncle has been hiding? She probed, her voice disarmingly smooth. It would serve you well to tread carefully. The public craves revelation. Keep your nose out of our family matters, I shot back, feeling rage bubble inside. That I'm locked in a struggle I never wanted. All I wanted was to reclaim my identity, to stand up for what was right. And yet here I was, trapped between Theo's ambition and the choking chaos of family secrets laid bare. Enough of this theatrics. Theo barked, his voice rising above the noise, leaning onto his desk with an intensity that reverberated through me. I don't have time to entertain this charade. If you wish to know the truth, you'll find yourself competing against powers you've yet to comprehend. And just like that, I felt the weight of his words settle heavily in my chest. The realization hit me: they weren't just veiled threats. They were a warning, a heavy burden of responsibility I had unwittingly assumed. But one thing coursed through my defiance. I would not be a pawn in Theo's twisted game. And for every dark secret he wielded, I had one light. The resolve to uncover truth that would expose the ties that had bound secrecy around our family for too long. Whatever you're hiding, well, find it, I said, facing him down, the fire in my heart igniting my courage. And when we do, we will be the ones writing our story, not you. With that statement hanging in the air, the tension flickered like lightning before a storm, threatening to explode into chaos, a war of revelations that might either shatter us or unveil a hope hanging on the precipice of our family ties. As we turned to leave, Theo's laughter trailed behind us like a specter, flooding the space with a heavy sense of foreboding. But little did he know we, too, carried shadows of our own, secrets waiting to be unleashed upon the world. And as the reality outside loomed, the weight of the world clinging to us like a veil, I resolved that no matter what, by truth or consequence, we would rise from this darkness together, confronting whatever lay ahead. The truth would be the weapon that either broke us or set us free. But one thing was for sure. I would not back down, and together we would redefine what it meant to be family. The moment was ours, the beginning of a reckoning, the dawn before a tempest that promised to shake all our foundations. As we walked out, each step felt like a return to the light, a spark igniting not just my spirit but a bond that may finally shatter the darkness. And though the light flickered, I could almost hear my heart whispering a promise. By confronting the shadows, we will emerge whole.